So the first thing I'm going to tell you flat out is you need to be tech savvy and fast. Don't believe me? Go check out the article I mentioned by Robert Glazer. Technology is everything, folks. Look at what just happened. Everybody's been quarantined. Everybody's learning to work from home. If you can't leverage all sorts of types of technology right now, if you can't become hyper functional and successful using technology, that's a concern, because this won't be the last time something like this happens to us. On top of that, lots of people, even in my space, were already talking about the future and the fact that this is probably going to bring about the fourth industrial revolution. And with that comes massive disruption and massive opportunities. On top of that, there are study after study that shows in the last couple of recessions, the companies that bounced back first and grew the most were tech companies. So technology is here to stay, and you need to be extremely proficient in it. I'm not just saying know what to do. I'm saying leverage it as much as you possibly can and be fast with it. Because that's the other thing. You're up against a generation that's been raised on technology. They can do things at lightning speed. So to know the technology is one thing, but to be so good at it that you can work faster and really show that hustle, that's what you're going to need to do. So the second thing I'm going to tell you is that you cannot be a Jack or Jill of all trades. This is the kiss of death of people over 50. And it happens by mistake. It's by accident, so it's not your fault, but I want you to hear me out right now. Okay. So you start out in your career, you have no experience whatsoever, right? You can't get hired because you don't have any experience. Slowly but surely, you start to get experience. You start to gain up some specialties. You start to work on different things. All of a sudden, you, over the years, have gained a lot of experience in a lot of different things. Well, that's exciting to you because you can still remember the days when you couldn't get hired because you had zero experience. So you now go into these interviews saying, I can do anything. I can do this for you. I can do that for you. I've got this. I've got that. Problem with it is that it sounds like a snake oil salesman. It doesn't sound like you have any sort of depth or focus. And I'm not the only one saying this. There's an amazing YouTube video out there that talks about something called executive presence. And I know not all of you are executives, but it's important to understand the concept of executive presence because we all have what's called professional presence. And so the studies were done, and this woman found, this college professor found through massive study that it is the perception of us being an expert in one thing that builds the foundation for people to assume that we can be smart in other things. This is why we harp on you to become a specialist. It's why at Work It Daily, we dial in our members and say, what's your specialty? What's the problem you solve? What's the pain you alleviate? How do you save companies money? How do you make companies money? When you are so clear in that one specific area and you can speak to it and explain how you do it, it gives you credibility. And at your age, if you're over 50 and you can't do this, the question becomes, well, did you ever become an expert at anything? What do you just have a lot of general knowledge, but you're not really good at one thing, good enough to prove to us that you can be an expert, which then by default would mean you would be good at other things too. So this is all mental studies and how people think. If you are over 50, you need to know what your specialty is. And then by default, you'll be considered capable of doing lots of other things. But you cannot say that you're a Jack or Jill of all trades. In fact, if you say, I'll do anything, that would be like, deciding that you want to date and going out and telling everybody, I'll date anyone. You'll get all sorts of suggestions. You'll turn those suggestions down. People will be offended that you didn't take their suggestions of who to date. And now you look like you're picky. You need to dial it in, especially if you're over 50. You need to know what your specialty is, and you need to know the kinds of companies that hire for your skill set and what you want to do at those companies. It's called a wisdom tax. You need to be able to show the wisdom of your years and your experience, and you do that by dialing in on a specialty. So the third thing, and I hinted to it already, but this is a biggie, intellectual humility. If you're walking around trying to tell everyone, look at me, I'm the best, I'm amazing, you will be seen as a narcissist, and you will also be seen as desperate. Where this comes out the worst in people over 50 is in their resumes and their LinkedIn profiles. And this happens all the time in Work It Daily. So somebody sends in their resume, we open it up, and they're over 50. It's in this fancy scripted font. It is 3+ pages long. It has a 1/2 inch margin on either side. It's in 9-point font. Every job has 15 bullet points in it, along with a descriptive paragraph. The top has a paragraph that starts with, I'm a proven and successful leader who's innovative, blah, 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 blah. And as you read through it, you're not only visually overwhelmed because it's so much information, but as a recruiter, having been in the recruiting industry, having worked with recruiters, I can tell you what happens is they look at it and a bunch of things go through their mind, especially when you need to think about the audience. Most recruiters these days, under the age of 40, they're millennials. They have a very different visual perception of what professional looks like. So they open up this, what I'm going to call old school resume, and they see this old font immediately. Yeah, age discrimination. You look old. You don't have an updated font. All this text. Okay. Again, visually overwhelming. You're trying to brag. You're trying to show off. You're trying to impress me. So immediately the red flag goes up. Like, why are they trying so hard? If they're that successful, I don't need this information. The facts should speak for themselves. And then again, me, I'm so great, I'm so amazing. Well, they get to the point where they're reading this and everything that you've written with all this subjective text. They go, really? Says who? Says you? This document is sending a message. And you might be thinking it's sending the greatest message in the world in your mind for your age. But all of that has changed in the last several years. Now it's about intellectual humility. The more years of experience you have, the more simplified and dialed in your resume is. It needs lots of white space. It needs to talk about your main area of expertise. And you need to have just enough bullet points on it to tease the recruiter to want to contact you. This is how you know you've done your resume right in this day and age. If a recruiter calls you and says, yeah, I saw your resume and it looks like you have all the basics we need for the job, but I really needed more information. You should put more information on your resume. You just smile and nod and say, oh, thank you, absolutely. And you don't change a thing. Because the fact that it didn't have too much information on it is the very reason they gave you the phone call. Of course, they're going to tell you to put more information on it so that they can screen you out with having to call you. So all these people over 50, you're literally screening yourself out by overdoing your resumes. You got to change it, the whole structure of it. Same thing with LinkedIn. Same exact thing. LinkedIn's just an online version of the resume in a preset format. Yet I see people all the time writing in the third person. It's your profile. Don't write your about section in the third person. Writing epic novels that nobody reads. You have got to simplify. You've got to have your brand on point, and you've got to show intellectual humility. All right, number 4, you got to give away the secret sauce. Now, this is another one that I hear people over 50 say, well, I don't want to write up a presentation and I don't want to write an article. I don't want to tell people how I do things. It's my secret sauce. This is how I got to where I am. Folks, there's no secret sauce anymore. We live in an information era. People can just absolutely log on Google search and find all sorts of things for free. Content is given away all the time. What really shows your expertise is your ability to create that content and share it with the world. You want to prove you're an expert? You need to write articles, maybe record a video, get interviewed on a podcast. Somehow, some way, you've got to show people you know what you're talking about. You don't wait and say, well, I'll tell them that when I get the interview, because you won't get the interview. You have to give away the secret sauce. We live in a time right now where that's how you build your credibility, by sharing more, not less. And this is another mistake that I see seasoned executives making all the time, which is so ironic because younger workers with less experience, they don't have nearly as much ability to create content that older, more seasoned workers have. What's the 5-step process you use to solve a problem in your type of work? What's the 3 beliefs that you have that you stick to consistently to make sure that, a project gets done on time and under budget? What's your process for assessing a situation and building a game plan? You have these methodologies, these processes, these beliefs because of your experience, and you need to let people know about them. You have to explain it to them. You have to give away the secret sauce as much as you can to earn that credibility, that trust, and that respect. Okay. All right. And number 5. So let's say you can't create content. Let's say you're going, okay, JT, yeah, I have a secret sauce, but I'm not going to write. I'm not going to do a video, whatever. Okay. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. But at least curate content, folks. Curate content. What does that I mean by that? Well, are you reading articles every day, reading news sources in your industry, watching videos? Are you part of groups? You're taking in content all the time. There's got to be content that you're taking in that you're going, that's really smart. I totally agree with that. In my industry, that's exactly how we do it. Or, yeah, that's how we do it in the kind of work I do. That's you validating your beliefs, your methodologies, your processes via other content. So take that content, snag it. It's called curating content. Put it in your feeds, your LinkedIn feed for starters, and comment. Comment and say, I agree with this article because it really highlights this in my industry, or I disagree with this point, or I think these 5 things are important. Write 2 or 3 sentences why that article is super valuable to your audience. Give them perspective, give them a chance to get inside your head as a seasoned professional. And then make sure you hashtag it, especially on LinkedIn. 3 hashtags. I don't think most people understand this. LinkedIn has fully adopted a hashtag strategy. So let's say that you're in healthcare and you see a really great article on healthcare, business opportunities post-COVID. So you write why you agree with this and think everyone should read it in healthcare. And then you put hashtag healthcare. Everyone that's following that healthcare hashtag, your article goes in their feed. The little thing you commented on and posted goes in the feed for them to take a look at. This is how you get more eyeballs on your profile on LinkedIn. This is how you improve the rankings and where you come up in search results on LinkedIn. If you can't create content, gosh darn it, you curate it every single day. It is a must do as a seasoned professional. And when you know how to optimize that content on LinkedIn, you're going to do even better. But this is it, folks. These are the 5 things that you can do right now to leverage the strengths that you have and minimize the weaknesses of where you are in your career.